hopefully no more feedback. This morning, I am serving as chair in the absence of Commissioner Maloney. He is on vacation this morning, so this week. As vice chair, I will be presiding. I'm Zan Ojero, and online we have, oh, you're muted, Annabelle.
Okay. Annabelle Harmio, Commissioner.
Okay, and then in the room?
Joe Kirby, County Administrator.
Vance Crony, County Counsel.
Alyssa Rash, Public Information Officer. Lilia Nevo, Board of Commissioners Office.
And online, we have several guests and staff. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
Lynn McKee, Fairgrounds Manager.
Teresa Farley, Board of Commissioners.
Mary Otley, Finance.
Jen Ambuel, Finance.
Barry Stockoff, Public Works.
Andy Smith, Health.
Brian Lee, Emergency Manager.
Okay, and then we have several folks with us for the CDBG discussion as well. If you guys would like to introduce yourselves now, please feel free.
Kate Portia, Corral County Economic Development. Good morning, everybody.
Rita
I'm Kit
Olson,
White.
and New York.
Kent White, City of Corvallis Housing and Neighborhood Services Division.
Anyone else?
Josie Munoz, Health. Erica Marlowe, Board of First. Rebecca Taylor, Community Development.
Direct.
Sarah Hartstein, Health.
Okay. I think the only other person I see online is Brenda McComb. Welcome, Brenda.
Thank you.
Okay. I would like to just briefly acknowledge the upcoming Juneteenth holiday celebration, commemorating the end of slavery. It's the date that the news of emancipation finally reached Galveston, Texas in 1865, and to acknowledge the fact that the local branch of the NAACP celebrated Juneteenth a couple weeks back in a series of online events that was very well attended, and it encouraged everyone to learn more about Juneteenth and to partake in the national celebrations upcoming. That's it for announcements from me. Any other announcements? Okay, comments from the public. Hearing none, we will now review and approve the agenda. We do have one change to make. We have the same items listed under work session and under new business. Items 6.1 and 6.2 are the same subject matter as 7.1 and 7.2 under new business. We'd like to combine those and deal with the decision-making process when we handle items 6.1 and 6.2, so we can strike 7.1 and 7.2.
Or alternatively, you're combining 6.1 and 7.1 and 6.2 and 7.2.
Yes.
Either way.
Yes, either way. I have no other additions to the agenda. Joe?
Do not.
Commissioner Jaramillo? Oh. I can't hear you, but I am assuming that you've said no. Okay. The first item of business, there have been no chair decisions that I'm aware of.
No, there have not.
The next item of business is approval of the consent calendar, which includes a series of past meeting minutes.
I would move approval and mass.
Okay, I'll second. All in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. Moving on, we have a series of 4 public hearings. And the first one is in the matter of submitting a community development block grant application. And speaking to that topic are Kate Portia and Kent Weiss from the City of Corvallis.
I'll get us started. This is Kent Weiss. I'm the Housing and Neighborhood Services Manager for the City of Corvallis, and I'm working with the county out of the Emergency Operations Center to put together an application for community development block grant funding. And Kate is currently in the EOC as the operations manager, and so she and I are collaborating on this, as well as with Rebecca Taylor, who's been doing some great work in and out of the EOC. So we've got a order of proceedings that we can follow here. I believe that you received that order, and it's fairly regulated by the state's guidelines for how we should proceed with our hearing for CDBG applications. And the beginning of that is to read the 2 public notices that we published in the Corvallis Gazette Times a week ago, announcing this public hearing and an opportunity for input into the hearing. So I will read the English version, and then I believe Rocio is going to read the Spanish version. And I'll get started now. It's relatively long, so please bear with me. Public notice and notice of public hearing. Due to the recent coronavirus outbreak and health concerns, the Benton County Commission will not be physically meeting, but instead will be meeting remotely. Visit Benton County's Facebook page as they plan to live stream the public hearing at http://facebook.com Benton County Gov. Go to meeting. There's an option with an address, and then dial in access phone number and code. The request in the public notice says, please verify the go to meeting information prior to the public hearing at https://co.benton.or.us/BOC. Benton County is eligible to apply for a 2020 Community Development Block Grant from Business Oregon. Community Development Block Grant funds come from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. The grants can be used for purposes that primarily benefit persons with low and moderate incomes. Approximately $12 million will be awarded to Oregon non-metropolitan cities and counties in 2020. The maximum grant the city or county can receive for emergency small business and micro enterprise assistance is $150,000. Benton County is preparing an application for a 2020 Community Development Block Grant from Business Oregon for funds to assist small businesses and micro enterprises negatively impacted by COVID-19. It is estimated that the proposed project will benefit at least 60 persons, all of whom will be low or moderate income. A remote public hearing will be held by the Benton County Board of Commissioners at 9 a.m. on Tuesday, June 16th, 2020. The purpose of this hearing is for the Commission to obtain citizen views and to respond to questions and comments about community development and housing needs, especially the needs of low and moderate income persons, as well as other needs in the community that might be assisted with a community development block grant project and the proposed project. Written comments are welcome and must be received by Monday, June 15th, 2020, and should be sent or delivered to the Benton County Board of Commissioners, 205 Northwest Street, Corvallis, Oregon, 97330. To be considered at the hearing, written testimony must be received by the Board of Commissioners office by 5 p.m. on Monday, June 15th, 2020. For further information, or if you need special accommodations to participate in the meeting, call the Benton County Board of Commissioners office at 541-766-6800. The location of the hearing is accessible to persons with disabilities. Please contact Teresa Farley at 541-766-6890 if you need any special accommodations to attend or participate in that meeting. More information about Oregon Community Development Block Grants, the proposed project, and records of Benton County's past use of community development block grant funds is available for public review at the county's Community Development Department at 360 Southwest Avery Avenue during regular office hours. Advance notice and an appointment are required. For an appointment or if special accommodations are needed, please call Rebecca Taylor, 541-766-0178. Permanent involuntary displacement of persons or businesses is not anticipated as a result of the proposed project. If displacement becomes necessary, alternatives will be examined to minimize the displacement and provide required reasonable benefits to those displaced. Any low and moderate income housing that is demolished or converted to another use will be replaced. That was published on June 9th, 2020. And I apologize again for the length of that, but that was a prescribed notice that the state had to approve before we published, and now we'll have the Spanish version of the same notice.
Thank you, Kent. Rocio.
Hi, good morning, everyone. So again, as Kent mentioned, we will have to read the whole thing, so apologies in advance. Aviso público y aviso de audiencia pública. Debido al brote reciente del coronavirus y las preocupaciones de la salud, la Junta de Comisionados del Condado Benton no se reunirá físicamente, sino que se reunirá de forma virtual. Visite la página de Facebook del Condado Benton mientras planean transmitir en vivo la audiencia pública a la dirección de facebook.com/bentonco.gov y dan la información de la Junta de GoToMeeting con el número de teléfono. Por favor, verifique la información de la Junta virtual por medio de GoToMeeting antes de la audiencia pública en www.co.benton.or.us-BOC. El Condado Benton es elegible para solicitar los fondos de Desarrollo Comunitario 2020 por parte de Business Oregon, Negocios Oregon. Los fondos para el desarrollo comunitario provienen del Departamento de Vivienda y Desarrollo Urbano de Estados Unidos. Los fondos pueden usarse para fines de beneficiarse principalmente a personas con ingresos bajos y moderados. Se otorgarán aproximadamente $12 millones a las ciudades y condados no metropolitanos de Oregon en el 2020. Los fondos máximos que una ciudad o condado puede recibir para asistencia de emergencia para pequeños negocios y micronegocios es de $150,000. El condado Benton está preparando una solicitud para financiamiento de desarrollo comunitario 2020 por parte de Business Oregon para ayudar a las personas, negocios y micronegocios afectados negativamente por el COVID-19. Se aproxima que el proyecto propuesto beneficiará al menos a 60 personas, todas las cuales serán de ingresos bajos o moderados. La Junta de Comisionados del Condado Benton llevará a cabo una audiencia pública virtual a las 9 de la mañana el martes 16 de junio del 2020. El propósito de esta audiencia es que la comisión obtenga opiniones de los miembros de la comunidad y responda a preguntas y comentarios sobre las necesidades de desarrollo comunitario y vivienda, especialmente las necesidades de personas de ingresos bajos y moderados, así como otras necesidades en la comunidad que podrían ser asistidas con un proyecto de financiamiento de desarrollo comunitario y el proyecto propuesto. Los comentarios escritos son bienvenidos y deben recibirse antes del lunes 15 de junio del 2020 y deben enviarse o entregarse a la Junta de Comisionados del Condado Benton en la dirección 205 Northwest 5th Street, Corvallis, Oregon 97330. Para ser considerados en la audiencia, el testimonio escrito debe ser recibido por la oficina de la Junta de Comisionados antes de las 5 de la tarde el lunes 15 de junio del 2020. Para obtener más información o si necesita adaptaciones especiales para participar en la reunión, llame a la oficina de la Junta de Comisionados del Condado de Benton al 541-766-6800. La ubicación de la audiencia es accesible para personas con discapacidades. Comuníquese con Teresa Farley al 541-766-6890 si necesita algunos arreglos especiales para asistir o participar en esta reunión. Hay más información disponible sobre los fondos de desarrollo comunitario de Oregon, el proyecto propuesto y los registros sobre el uso anterior de los fondos de desarrollo comunitario del Condado Benton están disponibles para el público en el Departamento de Desarrollo Comunitario del Condado en 360 Southwest Avery Avenue durante horarios laborales. Se requiere aviso previo y una cita. Para una cita o si necesita arreglos especiales, llame a Rebecca Taylor al 541-766-0178. No se anticipa el desplazamiento involuntario permanente de personas o negocios como resultado del proyecto propuesto. Si el desplazamiento es necesario, se examinará alternativas para minimizar el desplazamiento y ofrecer los beneficios requeridos, razonables a los desplazados. Cualquier vivienda de ingresos bajos y moderados que sea demolida o convertida a otro será reemplazada. Publicado el 9 de junio del 2020. Thank you.
Muchas gracias. Now we have a staff report.
Yes, I'll give you a brief overview of the content of the application. It's currently in draft form, and with help from Dev Northwest, Brigitte Olson and her staff, and Community Lending Works, we're putting the finishing touches on that, and we'll have it ready to submit as soon as we get minutes available from the meeting, from this meeting, and documentation from your meeting that approves these minutes. Once we have that second set of minutes in draft form, we'll be able to submit the application. That, again, is a state requirement in order to submit. So this application, if the commission approves moving forward with it, would request $150,000 from Business Oregon. Business Oregon is a state entity that receives federal community development block grant funding from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. And they are doing an emergency allocation of funding in response to the COVID pandemic. This particular grant request would be to get $150,000 to support approximately 60 low-income individuals who work either in small businesses or in micro enterprises. And if folks don't know what a micro enterprise is, it's a small, very small business, 5 or fewer employees, and the owner counts as one of the employees. The funding would be allocated as grants to those entities, and the purpose would be to bring back employees who have been laid off or had to be let go because of the impacts of the pandemic, or if people have had their hours cut significantly, it would be to bring their hours back to where they had been prior to COVID-19. The overall goals then are to help small and micro businesses recover and regain stability, and to help employees regain their incomes. For small businesses, they could receive up to $2,500 per job that is being rehired or improved, that's filled by a low or moderate income person. And micro enterprises would be awarded up to $10,000 in grant funding, where they are occupying low income employees as well. The state requires that if Benton County is funded, the funding has to be subgranted to a nonprofit entity that has a history of providing loans and grants to businesses, especially businesses with low and moderate income employees. And Community Lending Works is the entity in the Willamette Valley that exists for that purpose. They are an affiliate agency of Dev Northwest, and would be providing the same services of connecting the funding to the businesses in the community in both, in all 3 counties, Lynn, Lane, and Benton. The cities of Adair Village and Monroe and Philomath are also signing on as participants in this program, and I've worked with all 3 of the leaders in those communities to sign an intergovernmental agreement that will signify their interest in participating and helping out to get the word out into their communities. The final point, these grants will only be available to businesses that operate in either those 3 communities, Adair Village, Monroe, and Philomath, or in unincorporated areas within the county. They will not be available to any businesses that operate within the city limits of Corvallis. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. Brigitte Olson is also here, as I mentioned, to answer questions from the delivery side of all of this.
I have one or two questions, but perhaps Commissioner Jaramillo, you would like to start?
Go ahead, I don't have a question.
Given the grant format of this funding, what is the time period that micro business and small business owners would have to expend the funds? And do they have reporting requirements as well?
The time period to expend the funds will be 1 year from the date that the agreement with the state, the grant agreement with the state is signed. And your second question again, please?
Do the individual businesses have reporting requirements, or does that fall to Community Lending Works?
That will fall to community. Well, it'll be a shared responsibility because the businesses will have to provide access to their employees. But the ultimate responsibility for returning those reports to the state will fall on Community Lending Works.
Okay, and what is the anticipated start date if we do receive these funds?
That'll depend on how quickly we can get the application turned around and in. I'm projecting at this point, given your meeting schedules and typical turnaround for minutes, that we would be in early July. And I think the state isn't clear or isn't specific in exactly how long their review will take, but I would expect it to take at least 2 weeks. So we could be looking at early August.
Okay, thank you. I have not participated in community development block grant funding previously, and I have to say it's a very convoluted process, but it does provide lots of opportunity for participation from small cities and other members of the community. Do you have any additional comments, Brigitte?
Just that from a reporting standpoint, Community Lending Works will be following up with the businesses and micro entrepreneurs 6 months following the grant award. We'll be doing 2 or 3 reaching to the business owners, including emails and a call. And then we'll also reach out to Benton County for assistance if we're not able to gather that data after 3 times, trying to determine what the current status and income of the micro entrepreneurs are. We're really excited to help deploy these resources. We also are working with Business Oregon on some other resources, including loan tools. So waiting for those contracts to come forward shortly.
Excellent, thank you. I'm very grateful that we have your capacity here in our communities in order to be able to help with the economic recovery.
Thank you.
So if there are no other comments from commissioners of the room, I would like to begin our testimony from interested persons. Is there anyone that would like to speak to this topic? ¿Hay alguien que quiere hablar por ese tema? Okay. And did we receive any written testimony?
No, we did not.
Okay. So there's no staff response to testimony at this time. So at this point, we are ready to entertain a motion. And the motion is that we suggest is that I move to approve submittal of an application for State of Oregon Community Development Block Grant funding in the amount of $150,000 to support a Benton County small business and micro enterprise emergency grant funding program. Do I hear a motion?
Are you making that motion?
I don't think I can.
I don't think so either, but thank you for reading it because I wasn't able to pick it up off my computer in time. So that is my motion.
Okay. I will second that motion. All in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Thank you. Now we can move forward to the next phase of your process for this CDBG grant program. Thank you very much for the teamwork between the city and the county and Dev Northwest moving this forward.
Thank you all.
Moving forward to our next public hearing. We have a public hearing to adopt supplemental budget number 20121, and Jen Ambule from Finance will present on that topic. And again, that will be followed by public testimony, any staff response, and then a vote on the matter. Jen or Mary?
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
I am before you today to discuss 7 funds that require an amendment in the 1921 biennium budget. I will just go forward and address each fund one at a time. It's a very large supplemental budget, as you are very well aware, as we discussed at the work session. So to start, the general fund, we are seeking a net appropriation increase of $2,256,294. That is comprised of the following changes. The general government operations, we are requesting to transfer appropriation from contingency in the amount of $2 million to the criminal justice program to allow the county to continue to move forward with criminal justice system improvements. We are also requesting an appropriation transfer from GIS contingency in the amount of $80,000, and that will be used to purchase 2 years of pictometry, which will aid the county assessor in identifying properties for reappraisal. And then additionally, we are asking to increase the appropriation authority for COVID-19 related expenditures, and that is a result of $700,000 in new revenue in the CARES Act. Within the general fund in the public safety operations, we are asking for an increase of $429,581. This increase addresses specific EOC training and, got to get this right, small unarmed aircraft systems, search and rescue, emergency management equipment, and that is due to the receipt of 2 grants from Homeland Security, and that amount is in $79,727. Additionally, the drug treatment court appropriations are being asked to increase in numerous objects, and this is due to higher than anticipated SAMHSA grant carryover, an increased beginning fund balance, and higher than anticipated grant award from the Criminal Justice Commission. In health operations, we're asking for an increase of $787,246, and this appropriation increase accounts for 4.5 FTE in new positions, a CD nurse manager at 1.0, which is $184,952, an OHA community partner outreach worker, which is $140,236, plus $364 for travel. That is also a 1.0 FTE. A DCBS Oregon Marketplace Outreach Worker in the amount of $63,500, plus $9,400 in travel and supplies, and that is also a 1.0 FTE. Tobacco, alcohol, drug abuse prevention, $74,511, and that is a 0.5 FTE. The last position would be Developmental Diversity Service Coordinator. It's 1.0 FTE, and the amount is $134,283. There is also an appropriation increase to cover additional local Medicaid medical match funds of $180,000, and then an increase to contingency within developmental diversity in the amount of $339,467. Overall, we are also asking that the contingency decrease in the amount of $1,740,533 and that is for the above mentioned pictometry purchase, criminal justice system improvements, and the increase offsets that into the contingency of the general fund. And that is all for the general fund. The road fund, there's an actual net appropriation increase of 0. We are just asking to reclassify appropriation authority, and that would be an appropriation transfer from contingency in the amount of $69,150, and that is for a purchase of a sweeper. And then consequently, we are asking to decrease contingency in that same amount. The next fund is the Employee Benefit Trust Fund. There's a net appropriation increase of $55,000, and that is within general government operations. And that increase is for materials and services within the county wellness program due to the receipt of a wellness rebate. The Intergovernmental Services Fund, the net appropriation increase is $1,134,069. There would be an increase to general government transfer to other funds in the amount of $562,000, and that is for the transfer into debt service for 4500 Southwest Research Way, and that's the result of new rental income we're receiving on the Fiserv building at this time. Public safety operations is increased $10,069, and that would be in materials and services due to the receipt of a grant award through the Bureau of Justice, and that is new revenue to offset that appropriation increase. And then debt principal and interest payment would increase $562,000, and that is the payment for the debt on 4500 Southwest Research Way. And so that is funded by the rental income that's transferred to the debt service cost center. The health management service funds, there's a net appropriation decrease of $228,487. Health operations is being decreased that amount in personal services for 2 floating administrative assistants, as the staff is actually paid out of Fund 521 instead of 515. The department cost allocation is reduced by that same amount, so it nets out to 0. The Benton Health Center Fund, there is a net appropriation increase of $1,809,383. That is comprised of an increase in health operations in the amount of $4,048,360 for the following, positions. There are 3.0 FTE mental health workers in the amount of $442,613. 1.25 FTE QMHP and physician in the amount of $169,775 plus $3,040 in materials and supplies. 1.5 FTE medical assistant and physician in the amount of $144,445. And then the 2.0 FTE floating administrative assistants mentioned previously in the amount of $228,487. There's also an additional appropriation increase for support provided by developmental diversity in the amount of $60,000. An appropriation increase in the amount of $3 million for the construction on the Lincoln Clinic, and also an increase to debt principal and interest payment in the amount of $65,000, and that is for the debt payment on the Lincoln Clinic. Overall contingency would decrease $2,303,977, and that would account for the appropriation transfers for the construction and the debt payment on the Lincoln Clinic, and a reallocation from Fund 521 to 522. Lastly would be the East Lynn Health Center Fund. There is an ask for a net appropriation increase of $448,304, and that would just increase contingency for the revenue reallocation from Fund 521 to 522. Overall, that brings us to a net appropriation increase of $5,474,563 in the current biennium. These increases to appropriation are supported by corresponding revenue in the same exact amount, and this request provides the county with increased spending authority for revenue that we have already received or anticipate receiving in the near future.
Thank you, Jen. Mary, do you have any additional comments?
No, when I talk to you later about the revenue projections, they kind of all sort of tie together. But yeah, no, this will take care of it for the immediate need.
Yes, I can already see that we may be looking at yet another budget amendment in the near future.
Correct.
Okay, Commissioner Jaramillo. You're on mute. We can't hear you.
Buttons, I would move to approve the proposal.
I think we have to take public testimony first.
Oh, that's right, that's right.
And so if there are no other questions, I will call for testimony from interested parties. Okay, hearing no testimony at this time, I will now accept a motion. Close the public hearing and accept a motion.
As presented.
Okay, I will second that motion. All in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Thank you, Jen and Mary. This is a big budget amendment, and I know that COVID-19 was behind a lot of it. Some of it is just regular business, but this is one of those years where there's so much fluidity and unpredictability in finances that we're going to keep you busy.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to our next public hearing. Need to get back to my agenda. Hold on a moment. The next public hearing is in the matter of first reading regarding code amendments, and the presenters on this topic are Lindsay Godwin and Inga Williams from Community Development.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
So yes, as we discussed at the work session on June 2nd, there are several state bills that passed in 2019 that required changes to our development code, all of which are actually effective according to those bills. So we are asking that those changes also be incorporated into our code. Would you like me to summarize those changes again, or what would be helpful?
I think a brief summary would be useful, just in case we have people on the line that have not heard about them, but don't need to go into great detail at this time.
Okay, great. So one of the changes is House Bill 2106, and that provides for 5 additional extensions for farm and forest dwellings or approval. Another is House Bill 2001, which is related to middle housing, but only a very small portion of that bill affected our code, which was to remove where we could not require an owner occupancy of either a primary dwelling or an accessory dwelling unit. We had required that, now that cannot be required, so that's going to be removed. in addition, we couldn't require a on-site parking, so we've removed that requirement as well. House Bill 2844 provided an option for a smaller farm processing facility without siting standards. And House Bill 3024 clarified the rules for when you can replace a farm replacement dwelling. House Bill 3384 altered the requirements for when you can place a school in a farm zone, either an existing, and this is for the expansion of a non-conforming public or private school in the farm zone. And then Senate Bill 408 provided for the creation of a substandard parcel as far as size goes for a public or for a utility service. And so those are all the bills that we're responding to. I did notice in the proposed amendments, there's one slight, there's a word that I would like to propose to remove. We don't typically, it's on page 1 of Exhibit 2. When we reference our code internally, we use an acronym of BCC, and then we provide the number. In this one sentence, we've added BCC subsection and then the number. So I would like to remove that one word. And so that's the only change from what we proposed in the in Exhibit 2.
So,
And which section is that in?
That's so under 53.315 sub 3. On the first, or so page 5, I'm sorry, page 5, but it's on Exhibit 2.
Okay.
and you're proposing to remove the word subsection?
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any questions at this time for Lindsay? Okay.
No.
Given that these are all changes mandated by changes in state legislation, it's fairly straightforward, other than the fact that we did have the one question about the schools. This authorizes expansion of any school from kindergarten through 12th grade. It doesn't have to be a K-12 school, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, yeah. Thank you. I, at this point, would like to invite testimony from any interested parties. Okay, hearing no interest in testifying at this time, I will close the public hearing and I will accept a motion. And our intent is to conduct the first reading of Ordinance 2020-0297, approving the Development Code amendments with the one amendment as noted by Lindsay Godwin.
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Signify with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So the second reading.
Well, we do need to have a first reading.
The first reading.
I mean, I can do
Yes,
that
thank you.
if
I don't have
you'd
it in front
like.
of me. Thank you.
But before I do that, I just want to be clear. Teresa, you have the change that came from Lindsay, so that can be noted in the minutes? Well, that's encouraging.
I did, yeah. And it should, well, and I think it should be in the documentation, correct, Lindsay? Didn't you send the
No,
2 and 2A?
I just noticed that very recently, so I didn't see it 2 weeks ago.
Okay, but we do have the change. They can go in the minutes correctly.
So I think we should ask Erica if she captured that.
Yes, got it.
Thank you, Erica.
Yeah.
I didn't see. Sorry, Erica. I didn't see you on the list of participants. That's why I thought Teresa was our recorder. Sorry about that. Okay.
No problem. I'm AB.
AB, well, of course you are. Erica Milo, AB. How silly of me. Okay, first reading. Before the Board of Commissioners for the State of Oregon for the County of Benton in the matter of amending the Benton County Development Code, Chapters 53, 55, 60, 91, and 94. Ordinance number 2020-0297. Now therefore, the County Board of Commissioners of Benton County ordains as follows. Short title, amendments to the Benton County Development Code, Chapters 53, 55, 60, 91, and 94. So the second reading will take place on July 7th in this room at 9 o'clock.
Thank you. Okay, now we're moving on to the last of the public hearings in this series. And the presenter, in this case, the staff report will be presented by Vance Crony, County Council.
It was just my warm-up just now.
Yes.
So this is an amendment to Benton County Code Chapter 9, the Animal Control Ordinance. Our Animal Control Officer, Erica O'Neill, had come to me, last fall, late last summer, asking for a change in the code to add language that gives both her and the judges an additional discretionary provision that allows them to impose different sanctions or incentives to bring people into compliance with the code. As it stands today, the only sanction we have is a fine, and there are other options that judges and Erica would like to have available that are less harsh and less draconian to kind of coax people into compliance. It really is a very simple code amendment that asks just that there be additional lawful options available. The other thing, and I mentioned this in an email to you all last week, Erica also, backing up on that, the sheriff is also supportive of that amendment. In our current code, Chapter 9.475 details Benton County's responsibility for licensing and overseeing animal rescue entities. I don't know what's going on at the legislature, but in 2015, that was the state's responsibility, and the legislature gave it to the counties. So we added that provision. 2019, the legislature took it away and gave that responsibility to the state veterinarian. So we no longer have the authority outlined in section 9.475. Erica suggests we delete it. I agree. I've talked with the sheriff, he agrees. I talked with James Morales, who's the person who licenses as our county clerk, and he agrees. So if you're inclined to amend Chapter 9, I would ask that the amendment include a deletion of section 9.475.
Okay. Are there questions from the board? Annabelle?
None.
Okay.
This is pretty straightforward.
And are you in agreement that we should strike section 9.475 at this time, given that the authority for that has now been taken back by the state?
Yes.
Okay. I would agree, and I will open the floor for public testimony at this time. Is there any interest in public testimony on this matter of amending BCC Chapter 9? Okay, hearing none, I would entertain a motion to enact ordinance number 2020-0298, amending Benton County Code Chapter 9, including the deletion of section 9.475, and to conduct a first reading.
So moved.
Second. All in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. And now we will turn to the first reading.
Would you like another first reading?
Yes.
All right. Before the Board of Commissioners for the State of Oregon for the County of Benton in the matter of amending Chapter 9 of the Benton County Code, ordinance number 2020-0298. wait, I went too far. Now therefore, the Board of Commissioners of Benton County ordain as follows. This ordinance shall be known as Amendment to Benton County Code Chapter 9. And again, the second reading will take place on July 7th, 2020, here in this room at 9 o'clock.
Thank you. Now we are finished with all of our public hearings for the morning, and we will turn back to our combined items 6.1, 7.1. Presenter Tom King. Tom, are you with us?
I am.
Welcome.
Can you see and hear me?
We can see and hear you. Thank
Okay,
you.
cool. So there's a delay on my side. Yeah, so what I'm presenting today is the intergovernment agreement between the Corvallis School District and Benton County, one for the intergovernment agreement for the construction of the building, and the second is an intergovernment agreement for the ground lease of that site. So a couple highlights of the intergovernment agreement for the construction, just a couple highlights that I wanted to note. Current clinic, the county, we would be responsible, 3.1 of the IGA, we would be responsible for executing relocation and pay all costs of relocation of the existing facility.
Can I stop you for just a sec, Tom?
Oh, yes.
So on our agenda, the ground lease is first and then the IGA for construction is second. You can go in either order, but I just want to make sure that our recorders are clear on what order we're pursuing things in. So if we continue, we are actually focusing on items 6.2 and 7.2 at this time. Focusing on the construction, IGA.
Erica,
I can start over.
You got that one?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. So, like I said, Section 3, current clinic, just wanted to highlight some of the areas of the IGA. I will say that Joe and Vance all have reviewed both these documents in agreement with them, and we had some modifications with Paul Walsinger as well as Gary that we forwarded to the school, and they've made a lot of changes to the document. That's what we're seeing now. So 3.1, county shall execute relocation of and pay all costs of relocation of the existing clinic facility, so the modular building once we're done with that, so we would be responsible for that. And then 3.2, the county would coordinate with the district's contractor for relocation and removal work to move that off-site. Exhibit E has all the contract construction costs, I know, which the Board of Commissioners has reviewed in great detail multiple times. 4.2 gets into how we will be invoiced for the project. So it would be on a monthly basis, and we would have 30 days from the submission of invoices to pay the school district for that. So that's how that would take place there. I think those are the major highlights, and then 6.11, dispute resolution. So that is in there in case there was some kind of dispute with respect to the lease, how that would be resolved by mediation, arbitration. So that's one piece there. As far as that's just the highlights I recognized in the IGA as far as the construction goes.
Okay. Are there any other points that County Council or County Administrator would like to raise with respect to the IGA for construction?
Excuse me, Commissioners, I would just like to interject that there will be a subsequent topic that comes before the board at a later date that addresses this particular issue primarily from a financing perspective. The county is out of the $3 million project, approximately, the county is providing $1 million worth of that funding. Our county council is working with myself and the community health clinics through Tom, establishing I believe it's going to be a resolution, is that right?
Correct.
Identifying a term for the community health clinics to pay the county back over time, our portion that we're advancing to them, which is $1 million. So just know that there will be another topic that comes before the agenda, the commissioners within the next month or so.
Thank you. It's been a complicated arrangement with multiple parties, but a great collaboration with the Corvallis School District and the community health centers to make this happen. So I'm excited about it. I'm particularly excited since I live down the street from the project and I'm seeing the progress on Lincoln Elementary School every day. So I look forward to seeing the move of the modular and the next phase of the project. Commissioner Jaramillo, do you have any questions?
No, I don't. I think we've been over this topic several times it's been very thorough discussion.
Okay.
So if motion, I can make that motion now.
Yes, and the motion would be to approve the intergovernmental agreement between Corvallis School District and Benton County for the construction of the Lincoln Health Clinic.
And that would be for item 6.2 and 7.2, correct?
Correct.
Okay, that's my motion.
Okay, second. All in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Motion carries, and we will move backward to 6.1 and 7.1, considering the ground lease for the Lincoln Health Clinic.
Yeah, the ground lease agreement would be between the Corvallis School District and Benton County by and through the community health centers. So the community health centers are listed on the ground lease agreement portion. A couple highlights there. This would be a 99-year lease with an annual base rent for the lease of $1. There will also be some additional base rent of $1,000 annually to help with some of the capital expenses. This is a net lease, so we're responsible for most all the upkeep of the building. I think one of the major pieces that we kind of went around on, went kind of back and forth on and had some agreements with regards to the lease compliance, so section 5.3. And that had a lot to do with some of the regards to access to the building. So the district reserves the right to reasonably refuse the use of the building by any non-county group whose activities are not in the sole judgment of the district compatible with the educational mission of the district. So we talked about that a lot and came to an agreement there. And then 5.34, the district shall be granted access to the building for the purpose of determining lease compliance in 48 hours. Initially they could come on at any time. So we asked to have at least 48 hours before they came on site, just in case we could maintain HIPAA or anything like that we had going on. And then 5.37, in the event the district determined the clinic program or operation to be detrimental, the clinic will be notified and work collaboratively with the district to take reasonable measures to mitigating the risk. Originally, it was stated more they could just have us stop anything there, so we made an agreement that we would have discussion before anything like that was to happen if there was something that they felt that would cause risk to the school district. So those, I think, are the major items that I think were the highlights or the areas that we had a lot of discussion with on the school district going forward.
Okay. I was wondering what our current ground lease arrangement is with the school district, just so I could have a sense for how big a change this might be.
I think it is. I honestly do not have that in front of me, so I couldn't tell you exactly how it's written.
Actually, I don't know what our current agreement is.
So I am not sure, but I think the way this is written and the way we're currently operating are pretty similar.
And Tom, I don't recall that lease. And if you were to tell me we don't have one, I wouldn't be surprised.
Actually, that was the same comment I was going to offer. I am not aware of one. It doesn't mean one does not exist, but it did not come up through the course of our conversation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We are at a point where, Vance, you are our historical memory.
Oh, God, that used to be Pat Cochran, for crying out loud.
So from here on out, there will be an expectation
I call you Yoda, remember, for a reason.
My ears.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that were the case either. But yes, this is a permanent structure, whereas that was a modular and a 99-year lease. So it is a different time and a different building. Commissioner Jaramillo, do you have any questions?
No, I think it's pretty straightforward, and we've been talking about this for quite a while, so I think all my concerns are answered.
Tom, I do have one question. The $1,000 per month rental rate, is that something that was a surprise to you for the ground lease or not? And does that cover all groundskeeping?
Yeah, I was not surprised by it, and when Gary and Paul both reviewed it, they thought that was something that was fine to have in there and normal, in their opinion.
And it's within your operating budget?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. And does it include groundskeeping?
We currently do all the groundskeeping now ourselves, so I'm assuming we'd still be doing the same thing.
It's that's one
in
of
and around the
questions.
in and around the building.
Yeah, one of the questions I've had because of the fact that it's going to be a unified design overall for the facilities, and I wouldn't be surprised if they wanted it all to be maintained equally and at the same time. It's a question. Okay. So the
Commissioner, I would just like to correct one thing. I think when you referred to the $1,000, you indicated monthly. That's
It's
actually
annual.
$1,000 annually.
Annual.
That's correct.
Thank you. That's a big difference. Thank you. So the motion is very straightforward on this one to approve the ground lease agreement between the Corvallis School District and Benton County.
So moved.
Second. All in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Thank you, Tom. I really appreciate all of your work on this, along with the facilities team, to get this very exciting project off the ground.
Thank you very much.
Tom, also, before you leave, I do want to extend my thanks to Tom, as well as Sherilyn Dahl. Sherilyn helped kick off this project initially and then handed it over to Tom and asked him to shepherd it through the process. And I would say it's probably one of the smoothest partnerships that I've been part of over the course of my career. So my hat's off to Tom and Sherilyn and the school district. I think it's a great opportunity for the community overall.
Thank you for that acknowledgement, and got a chance to briefly see Sherilyn last night at the clinics board meeting, and she's happily
Smiling.
sailing away to retirement. Yeah. I look forward to being able to actually acknowledge her many years of service in person as soon as we've set a date for that event sometime later this summer. Okay, moving onward. The next item on the agenda is in the matter of amending the emergency declaration to extend through October 31st, 2020, item 8.1. Vance.
So this is the extension of the emergency declaration that the board has discussed on a couple of different prior board meeting agendas. It is before you as directed by the board. It extends the county's emergency declaration as it relates to the COVID-19 pandemic through October 31st, 2020. If you look at the order itself, it's relatively light on text. I felt it unnecessary to reinvent the wheel. I merely incorporated by reference the original declaration, so they are now companions and they are essentially joined at the hip. As is the case with the first amendment, this declaration can be, you can vote to end the emergency prior to October 31st if you deem that necessary. You may also extend the deadline if you deem that necessary. But right now, this does push us through October 31st under our emergency declaration authority.
Okay, and for purposes of explanation. The reason that we chose to retain this is so that we can continue to track our expenses for battling the coronavirus and be eligible to recoup those expenses from FEMA or other federal monies or state monies that become available, as well as to enable us to continue to support our Joint Information Center and all of the other functions of the Emergency Operations Center to battle the coronavirus and COVID-19. Correct?
That is correct, and just to clarify, with the emergency declaration in place, it gives us the possibility of receiving reimbursements, not the guarantee. If we did not have the emergency declaration in place, it would be guaranteed we would not be reimbursed. So it just
Thank you
gives
for
us
that
a chance.
clarification. We do know that we have received, or not yet, but we'll be receiving CARES Act funding through the state soon, and we are very grateful for that. And I will express my gratitude now to the finance section of the EOC and to our finance department for the scrupulous tracking of all of our finances, because it's made recouping some of those funds much more straightforward than they would have been otherwise.
Commissioner Osro, I would encourage you to ask Brian Lee for any comments
Yes.
he might have, our emergency manager. He is on the line.
Are there any questions from Commissioner Jaramillo? Comments from Brian Lee, Emergency Manager?
Yes, there is, and it's also to ensure that our communities know that we're really concerned about the continuing possibility of spikes in the virus. So I think this is a very important thing to do.
Thank you. Brian?
Yes, good morning, folks. I think you guys already kind of covered it really well, the CARES Act piece. So just to summarize, we got that, and there's another round of CARES Act funding coming.
Mm-hmm.
So we might not have much that we need to request FEMA reimbursement on in general. But that being said, Vance covered it well. We do need to still have that in place to be eligible for FEMA reimbursement, as well as other possible emergency powers that may be needed to support the management of this emergency at this point in time. And of course, come October, hopefully we'll see more with what's happening with OSU and all those dynamics, and we could adjust again come the fall.
Yes. Yep. Okay. So the motion for this item is to adopt order number D 2020-054, extending the declared state of local emergency through October 31st, 2020.
That's my motion.
Second. All in favor signify with an aye.
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 Annabelle, you and Zan sound remarkably similar today.
Oh, yeah. We didn't tell you we were connected at the hip, did we?
That's right. Okay. Onward. We will now move to the Emergency Response Policy Team. And first item is discussion of the EOC, Emergency Operations Center Policy Direction.
Commissioners, just to set the stage a little bit and make sure everybody is aware of the timing, we do have Charlie Fountain and Danielle Brown that will give the board an update on our health department priorities in response to the coronavirus pandemic. We also have Brian Lee, our emergency manager, who will also provide you an update regarding EOC status. And then at 11:30, we have Steve Clark from Oregon State University, who will be briefing the board regarding OSU's plans for the future. We might be done prior to 11:30, so we will probably have to maybe adjourn or recess and come back, depending on our...
The other option, depending on staff, well, no, let's just go ahead. We will proceed and then we'll recess after we conclude with this portion of our meeting until 11:30.
Okay.
So who will start us off this morning? Will it be Brian?
Can be.
Sure, I definitely can. So again, good morning, folks. Just a quick update on the EOC staffing. Today we did a sample low-scale staffing model. So operations, mainly by Kitty and her crew, are remote right now, as well as the health department. And then for planning, logistics, and finance, we're still in the room, but we've downscaled significantly. There's literally 3 of us. So we're just trying to be very mellow and just see how this goes and kind of test things out. Sierra and I are kind of putting together a plan and checklists for remobilization. Basically, pull off the shelf. What do we need to have? What would we need to either set up this space again and have it running, or set up a new space? So we're just kind of getting plans in place, and we have a meeting later this week with between Joe, Mark Shepard, Danielle, Charlie, Dave Busby, and I, to discuss what remobilization would look like and some of those metrics. So we'll have more for you probably next week. But we'll put those plans together, and other than that, we have another round of orientation happening. So a handful of folks will come through and do the brief, truncated orientation to show them around, discuss the roles and sections, so they are prepared to activate later on if needed. We are also putting together multiple teams. So we have several teams, all staffed by just county people right now, that we can mobilize in the fall if we need to. So we're going to start training those folks here. Once we downstaff the EOC a little more, we'll start training those in tabletops and getting them ready as well. So we're kind of just looking ahead in the future to see what our staffing models are going to look like. The JIC is still here today. They are staffed. They're going to be staffed pretty much to full capacity through the end of this month, and then they are also going to step down in a progressive way. So that's kind of our overall plan for staffing in the EOC.
Okay, thank you. And I am assuming you're also in coordination with Oregon Department of Forestry about any potential of a secondary emergency with respect to wildfire. And I know you've been thinking about non-congregate care sites if we need that in the case of fire or some other displacement event.
Yes, absolutely. We've been talking with Red Cross and ODF. We actually have a state call this afternoon regarding wildfire coordination and sheltering. And that's coming through OEM and OHA, just because there's so many other factors now with the risk of COVID on top of needing to shelter and evacuate people that we at least have to take into consideration. And I know California is having a couple of wildfires already burn things down. So it's definitely on our minds, and we're thinking about how we can manage it. Dave Busby and I are finalizing the EOP, so you should see that here in the next month or two. You'll have plenty of notice, and we'll probably meet with you guys one-on-one just to discuss the changes, but expect to see that in the next month or so.
Excellent. I'm looking forward to that. It's I know that process got derailed by the actual emergency. Looking forward to having the updated emergency operations plan in place that formalizes the relationship between Corvallis and Benton County in this regard. Commissioner Jaramillo?
No questions.
Brian, I do have one question that came up yesterday in call with Samaritan Health System folks, and that was the question of management of personal protective equipment. Lynn County was saying that they have enough of it around that it's stashed in everyone's offices, and both storage is an issue and the notion of rotating equipment. So you have first in, first out kind of a rotation. How are we managing that, and do we have the capacity both in terms of people and systems and space for it, or is it even an issue?
Yeah.
Yes, so it was previously stored at one of the Corvallis fire stations, and because of space issues, we actually moved it. I can share the location with you guys separately, but we have plenty of space now. In terms of rotation, we are sensitive to that. Right now, some of it's already expired materials, just because that's what they were distributing and what we had on hand. We do have a lot of PPE, I will say that, and I can share the exact numbers with you guys at a later date. We're working on getting an accurate mask count. Rick Paisley is actually helping us with that, as well as Jeff Cornwell, literally counting every single mask and every single box of gloves. So we're really going to have a real specific, accurate inventory here by the end of the month, and so we can coordinate a little more on that. And then in terms of rotation, we are keeping that in mind for the fall. I think after the fall is when we'll really know more about what our rotation schedule should be. And previously, a lot of the supplies we have on hand is old H1N1 supplies that we were hospitals and the county was told to either throw away or rotate out, and we just held on to them. So it'll be interesting to see what the state's and CDC's guidance are now on rotating out. But we do have plans to start cycling that through. I don't know what it looks like to replace it all. It would be a very, very high dollar amount to replace the quantity that we have. I know the supply chain is much more stable than it was. I know the hospitals getting orders as well as clinics and everyone else, but still not 100% intact. So I think there's still some questions about what the future holds for PPE supplies. But everyone's scrambling to get stuff stored up, and right now the weakest link is actually gowns.
Yes.
Generally, they're disposable gowns, and that's still our weakest link in terms of PPE. We have plenty of masks and gloves and everything else. So it's kind of where our one area is of weakness. But again, we do have good plans for management moving forward.
Good, thank you. I know that Lincoln County on the call yesterday was expressing a desire for gowns from anywhere they could get them. And yeah, and Danielle did send along the patterns that the Corvallis Sewing Brigade used and the instructions for making the Tyvek gowns. Thank you, Danielle, that was great. Hopefully they'll be able to make some of their own so that they have them for their testing sites. Okay. Anything else, Brian?
That's all I had for you.
Okay. Then we'll move on to Danielle and Charlie.
Hi, good morning, commissioners. Charlie and I haven't problem solved, so I'll just go ahead and jump in. The biggest thing the EOC is working on, or the health branch of the EOC is working on this week, is we were notified on Friday this past Friday, that the owner of the RVs that we had been renting for potential isolation units has declined to extend that contract and would like them back. So as of the 22nd, he will come get those. We'll no longer have those available for our use. There is exploration happening this week around what alternative resources might look like. There's a lot of email traffic and nothing specific yet. So there's a lot of conversations happening to try and find another solution for the isolation units should we need them. We have had those 3 RVs out at the fairgrounds just under a month now, just under a month, and we have not needed them. Knock on wood, we've not needed them once. So at this point, we're looking at all other options. So we're reaching out, making phone calls, sending emails. We have nothing concrete, but we're continuing to look. We did do an inventory of all the plans that we had completed and put them all in one place. So they are all on base camp now. So should we need to initiate any of those plans, they're all readily available in one space. So anybody that has access to base camp can pull them off and initiate the use of those plans. So those are the things that the health branch has been working on for about the last week and a half.
Thank you. Charlie?
Morning, commissioners. From the EPI side, fun never ends. Although we've had a bit of a lull here, we still have part of our team that is providing mutual aid for Lincoln County. That's, as you've probably read, a very complex outbreak and investigation. They have significant problems, and then today yesterday we heard, today it was in the news about the really large outbreak in Union County. Just a reminder that, when you have a focal group or a super spreader event, things can jump out of control really at a moment's notice. And so it basically gets back to the plans that we're making for EOC reactivation, when and if the public health or health department resources become stretched or an event like that happens and the JIC needs to ramp back up, something like that. So just a reminder of all of that. The TRACE study, OSU TRACE study did do a little over 600 samples in Corvallis over the weekend. So we are looking at receiving those results in the next couple of days as they get through the lab system. We'll see. I was chatting with the TRACE folks just earlier this morning, and we're all really curious. They're just about to release some of the information from their Bend work and ours, and this is intended as a long-term longitudinal study to see how the virus moves and propagates through the population. And so, really interesting to watch, and we'll see what happens, whether these events really are, as they spread it through the state and are able to respond to some of these outbreaks, if they are truly focal or if they have bleed over and effects on the general population. So it remains really exciting to be involved in some of this original practice-oriented research. Last week, we had a couple of new mandates dropped on the local public health system in Oregon, sort of unexpectedly, and that is, one of them is a mandate for us to review and approve and sign off on the reopening plan for every school, K-12 school. And then following on the heels of that, a mandate for us to review and sign off on higher education plans, so OSU and LBCC. We've been working with OSU for a long time. We have really good relations with the schools. The school plan structure is quite detailed and involved, and so we're in the process. We've developed a conduit for them to do their submissions. Had outreach already from a couple of districts of where and how they submit their plans. I don't think they've got them ready yet, but they just want to know where to submit them. So we have a conduit for them to do that. They're putting together a team, a small team that will develop expertise on that guidance and be on the forms they have to fill out and be able to do that review and make a recommendation for. I'm not quite clear yet whether it is Bruce or myself that has to do the final sign-off or both. I don't think that it is the local public health authority. I don't think it is you, but I need to dig into that guidance to be absolutely sure. But anyway, we're developing a group that will develop the background. So one more thing for us to stretch around and identify internal resources, and one more thing for a few people to build competency on. So every health department in this state is going through this. I sort of wonder how, a county like Marion or Washington, even with their greater resources, but with all of the ongoing outbreaks they have, how they're going to wrap themselves around this. But it's something that we've got to do now. The other thing that we're just finding out about is apparently the state is developing a plan to do testing of all long-term care facility residents and staff members. And as yet, we have no details on how that will be done, who will do the testing, how it will be paid for. We're hoping for some more information at a briefing at noon today, but things continue to move fast, and so we're trying to paddle as hard as we can, keep our heads above water, and stay ahead of things, or at least try to keep up.
Yeah, it seems that every week there's something new that way, and the school mandate is it's not just district by district, but school by school plans, so it's a pretty
Correct.
granular. I know that the Trace project is also going to be over in Newport, in Lincoln County more broadly, this weekend, attempting to get a sense for the prevalence of the coronavirus in Lincoln County to determine whether it is extending beyond just the Pacific Seafoods plant. Hopefully not. So I'm very grateful that we have OSU right here in our backyard, and that the public health team has been so responsive. And I know that our navigators have been helpful as well, and I think extension agents. So it's a pretty extensive network right now.
Yeah, and that was really the conversation I had with Dean Nieto just this morning about, developing that expertise and developing the capacity to actually do more than just the trace testing, but do some more practical assistance to local health departments. And we talked a bit about, of course, Lincoln County, and they've been working with the Lincoln County folks, but with Union County having their outbreak and sort of developing that expertise within OSU to be able to respond through their extension wherever they're needed. And so they're consulting with myself and my colleagues around the state and working hard to be as helpful and responsive as they can be. They're really we've been working for many years on developing better practice academic relationships and understanding each other's work more. And now the heat's on, and it's really kicked those conversations to a brand new level, which is great.
Yeah, there are some silver linings in terms of relationships and collaboration in this emergency, thankfully. I have one question for you, Charlie, and that is that there seems to be a difference in the state numbers for Benton County and in our numbers for Benton County, and I'm just wanting a little bit of a calibration there. We've been reporting 60 positive cases, and for the last several days, the state has been reporting 63. Can you shed any light on that?
We have struggled with that. There has always been a discrepancy of about 2, and we're not sure where that comes from. We're very confident in our numbers and really not sure what the root of that discrepancy is. Occasionally, it's been driven by timing of reporting, but when they get ahead of us, it's hard to tell, if there's misattribution of cases, if those are presumptive cases that have not yet been tested positive. I think that's probably what it is.
Okay.
The state is rolling presumptive cases in, and we wait until we have confirmation to actually list them. So I'm pretty sure that's where it comes from, but it's sort of a moving target that we've been struggling with for a bit.
Yeah, it makes it a little challenging when the newspaper reports the state number and we are reporting the confirmed cases. So just be good to be a little clearer about that. So are there other questions for Danielle and for Charlie about the health aspects of this emergency at this time?
No questions, but thank you guys for doing such a good job. It's hard work.
It's really, thank you very much, but it's the teams. I mean, we've got people that are digging in all day, every day, and they really deserve a tremendous amount of credit for their dedication and stretching around new responsibilities, unfamiliar terrain, unfamiliar partnerships. People have really stepped up. It's remarkable.
I agree with Charlie. It's been a challenge, but I've really been impressed with the staff and the dedication that we have and the work that's being done.
Thank you.
Oh,
yes,
no.
You have fantastic people. I wanted to say that Teresa Farley reminded me that I missed an item on the agenda. I omitted 6.3, the revenue forecast from Mary Otley. And so we will.
Which is a key.
Yes, we will be doing a detour backwards in the agenda, and I apologize to Mary.
I blame Mary for not speaking up.
Mary knew we'd come back to her.
Can't do without.
Too important.
Yep. Danielle and Charlie, thank you very much. That was a helpful update, and I look forward to hearing from you again next week, if not sooner. So at this time, we will move back to item 6.3, and I apologize, Erica, for jumping around so much in the agenda.
No problem, thank you.
Mary, are you on board?
I am. Good morning. And I don't mind being, I've been here working, listening to you. So I kind of like this, not actually have to be in the meeting. You can do other things and still be part of the meeting.
Yes,
So true.
it is. It is an efficiency moment for sure. I think it's very useful.
Good morning, and we're here to talk about what our revenue looks like for the next biennium and possibly on, actually for this biennium, possibly on to the next biennium. So this began with a process of I asked every department to identify what they believe their revenue is going to look like for the rest of the biennium, for basically for the next year. And so those are the numbers. If you look at the one report that is, it says, apparently has no title on it, but it's the fund, and it says estimated biennial revenue loss. That number is by fund. And as you can see, I also added some narrative we'll talk about, but as you can see, overall, and we're not in that, the general fund and the road fund and are not in that bad a position as far as revenue loss. That can be made up on, probably not already had. We haven't looked at expenditures, so I'm sure our expenditures are down. I know in personnel, because we're holding positions open, we probably have increased expenditures to match that right now. However, that said, we don't know what the economy is going to look like in the next biennium and what impact that's going to have on us, in particular, our biggest revenue source, which is property taxes. This projection assumes we're going to get the property taxes we budgeted for. In all likelihood, we will get more than what we budgeted for, just in that we budgeted with a smaller value increase. So there are some problem areas that really don't have to do with the COVID virus results, but we really need to be mindful of how we position ourselves going into the next biennium, because I think that's where we're going to see the downturn in both economy and state and federal revenues that are passing through to us. We've been very fortunate to be able to receive these federal funds. I just don't know that that's going to be able to continue to make us whole out into the future. So let's go sort of, if you have any questions, yeah, you saw this, I hope, earlier, but if not, the general fund looks really good. And if you kind of look at the other piece, that's the fund balances, and now the general fund is in really good shape, fund balance wise. We're $5 million over where we expect to be at the end of the biennium. So we have room in the general fund. That doesn't mean we have to spend it. It means it'd be good if we kept some more in reserve than we had planned, because you never know what's going to happen. And we are actually going to move, as Jen said this morning, in that $7 million contingency line, $2 million is coming out of that right now to be moved to the criminal justice program. So we're reducing right there. We're taking $2 million out of circulation, expecting to spend it on the criminal justice. So this is a snapshot in time where we are today. However, we had a really good year again. So the 1920 year, the general fund came out really well. And because we're at biennium, we have to look at both years together. this projection that you're seeing in front of you doesn't include the 1 million plus that we're going to receive probably in the next week from the CARES Act. That's going to take care of all the expenses we've had. And just a reminder, we asked for all costs, including the wages that we were going to pay anyway for the folks that are working in response. We're being reimbursed for funds that we were going to spend anyway to keep these people employed. So that's about $500,000 that we wouldn't have gotten from FEMA, because FEMA does not reimburse us for redeployment of folks, only for overtime. So this was good. CARES Act was a good thing. And we will be asking for, again, as Brian said, we probably won't have any FEMA requests unless it ramps back up. We will be asking in July for another reimbursement for CARES, which at that time we'll be able to ask for the $200,000 that went to Benton Community Foundation and for the loan program. So we will be reimbursed for that as well. So is there any questions on the general fund?
Not on the general fund. Annabelle?
Okay.
No questions.
All right. The road fund, as you know, one of the big revenue sources of that is the gas tax. And obviously with people traveling less, the gas tax revenues will be down. According to George, I think it lags. We haven't really seen the impact of that because of the timing. They're just now, I think this next quarter we'll see what happens as far as the tax decrease, because it lags by about 2 months. So the revenue that we get in July will be for April, and we'll see those numbers. The road fund, though, and I think Gary's still on the line. Anyway, the road fund is receiving $600,000 for the MPO project in Albany. That money has already been spent, so they're reimbursing us. So it's kind of the money was spent either earlier this biennium or in the prior biennium. I'm not really sure which. The Spring Hill, I think, is what there was some project we did with MPO, and we're now getting reimbursed. So that's the $600,000 additional revenue that's going into the road fund. And they are projecting an $800,000 decrease in their operating revenues, which is offset by the $600,000. So the road fund, if you look at the other sheet, it looks like it's only going to be down $283,000, but it's a combination of the two. And I see Lynn's on here, so we're going to talk about the fair fund. Obviously, the fair fund is probably our most impacted fund percentage-wise from the coronavirus. Camping fees, she's expecting a $150,000 revenue decrease. Transient lodging, which is $160,000, and as you know, we really hadn't baked transient lodging into operations. It was for capital improvements. Just the facilities and marquee rental, $69,000. In the fair event itself, the revenue is projected to be down $381,000. However, we don't have the expenses as well, so that we hope nets itself out. So that $380,000, the loss of fair revenue, is offset by the loss of fair expenses. The fair fund is looking at a $860,000 revenue loss. And I know Lynn's been working really hard. Lynn, do you have any comments you'd like to make while you're there?
I'm here. Yeah, we're working on some revenue streams right now. I'm meeting with Trudy, and we're going to be talking about some possible events that would increase revenue. I've been redeploying the staff so that Parks has been picking up some of their salaries. That's very helpful. So we're looking at a combination of kind of starting to bring in money. The RV park is open, so thank goodness we're starting to see the revenues on that. So I think we'll hang in there and make it. We'll do this.
Lynn, do you have a sense for what the net loss will be from the fair as an event?
Actually, I think we'll be okay with the fair, because the fair, as Mary pointed out, we spend as much as we make. My concern is the staffing. is trying to cover staff costs when I don't have any rentals going on and I'm staffed up for rentals. So that's really been great to be able to have Doug and Scott and Nancy redeployed to parks. Deborah's going to do a week over at Sunset at the end of the month. So everyone's been very great to help us be able to redeploy people and help cover those expenses when I can't fully utilize them here. And, the question is, how long will this last? We're looking at potentially going into football season with no one in the stands and things. So if this is a really long-term situation with no rentals, again, thank goodness we have the RV park. And I've heard that RV sales are skyrocketing because everyone wants to travel with RVs. So we actually might see more RV money this summer than we're normally anticipating. And normally I close the RV park for a month for fair, so we won't be doing that. We'll actually be getting that RV money in. So so the fair, I can have a bad year and lose $100,000 on fair. So at least we know we won't be losing any money on fair. It'll probably just be about a wash with regard to the budget.
And we can also extend our RV storage rental because you don't have to move them out for fair. Are you pursuing that?
Yes, we've already gotten quite a bit of money. We extended them to the July and August. So yes, we've already seen additional money coming in for RV storage. So we're just having to be a little bit more creative and yeah.
Okay. And
it'll be interesting. It's just, and seeing what the requirements will be for rentals. It might run even a lot of potential renters off when they realize they have to have a sanitation attendant and a social distancing monitor and all these different state requirements. So I'm not really sure long-term what this impact will be on our rentals, so we'll just have to see what happens.
Yeah, I'm curious about that. At the same time, your facility is one of the few that actually has large enough spaces so that someone can have a large family gathering and social distance. So there's definitely going to be an adjustment process, and it won't be the same, but it sounds like you're doing a lot of things to make the best of it.
Yeah, and I just saw an email today from Paul that they're potentially looking at our facilities for a temporary jury space for trials, so that'll be kind of interesting too. So at least we've been able to use our facilities, I think, taking in some of the homeless, the COVID trailers, we've been able to use our facilities to help the county, which has been important to us as well.
Thank you. We really appreciate that.
All right. Thanks, Lynn. Moving forward, the Special Transportation Fund, as you know, this fund was struggling financially in that our expenditures were exceeding our revenues. Well, I think this right now they're not projecting any decrease in revenues, and the expenditures have gone way down in that the services that we're providing right now through Dial-A-Bus have gone down. So each month their contract is adjusted based on history. So we will have lower expenditures and not really anticipating a significant decrease in revenues. One of the big highlights, and if you guys have a chance to lobby for this, is I got an email from Gary last week that there's talk about reassigning the STIF funding. As you know, that's a new program based on a payroll tax and I think another source, and that was to be for expansion of services, and all the providers that have gone and asked to look at it and allow us to use that money to offset the losses that are incurring, that they can't get out of the hole to increase services. It makes no sense. So they're asking to have that rewritten, which would help a lot if we could actually use the STIF money for operations. So pay attention, please.
Yes, we will, and I'm heard about that already through the Association of Oregon Counties. I think that all counties will be in the same boat. Part of me also hopes that that's a temporary offset for this time, because the intent was definitely to expand and improve transit, not to plug holes.
And unfortunately, Commissioner, I think this particular fund that Mary's referencing, this fund was in trouble prior to even going into the coronavirus situation. So I think the way that Gary has managed it over the last 3 or 4 months has been very wise, and we're able to renegotiate, if you will, every 30 days based on demand. But I do want to put it on the board's radar that this fund was problematic prior
Yes.
to coronavirus, and we still have work to do to be able to adjust the revenues and expenditures so that they balance out. And what Mary was advocating for, I think, is really critical for at least our transit program for the foreseeable future in regards to that potential legislation.
We will be on the watch for that.
All right, the next fund is the Management Service Fund, and that's finance, IT, HR, county council, those of us, internal services, that we charge our costs out to departments. And so its revenue is neutral because we haven't made any adjustment to cost allocation. However, if you look at the fund balance, it has a higher fund balance than anticipated. And what that does, it rolls over and reduces cost allocation to the next biennium. So we could either reduce it now or we could reduce it later, but it does have impact to the department going forward.
Positive.
The Employee Benefit Trust Fund is where all the benefits that we cost out to departments, workers' comp, the health insurance, the dental insurance, the wellness program, and the like, is where those operations are held. And we were anticipating, this one looks like it's in really bad shape, but it's not if you look at the fund balance. We were projecting a $5 million carryover in the self-insurance, the health insurance, self-insurance. And we scaled that back when we saw what the price of it was, but it was after the budget was adopted. So right now that cost center has about $1 million fund balance right now. So we are putting money in reserve in case we do have that 1 out of 5 bad years for health insurance costs. It's just not $5 million. So that fund is fine. It looks bad on paper.
Okay, so it looks bad because of the $5 million budgeted for reserve.
A reserve that we don't have.
Yes, got it. I was wondering about that one. Thank you.
Yeah. And the health management that's the health department. Well, it's actually the health administration that is allocated out both to the health department and to the clinic. This is their overhead, and it's very similar to the Management Services Fund in that any excess reduces cost allocation out to the future. And you actually, when Jen was here early this morning, we actually did decrease the revenue. And then I'm talking to Sandy Smith, who's on the line right now. She plans to again reduce the revenue soon to take care of this excess that they have, and so reduce the cost both to the clinic and to the health department. Within the next month or so, there'll be an adjustment to the cost allocation coming from the health management fund.
Okay.
So that will help that. Enterprise operations, this one, this fund is projected to lose quite a lot of money, and that has to do with the fleet. We in past budgets, the fleet services were all encapsulated in the Internal Service Fund, and the Internal Service Fund, those should be for services provided to county customers. We were providing a big book of business to outside customers, so we split the operation thinking that would be more transparent, and it's very transparent, but right now the outside operations are losing money, and so we are going to have to make some sort of adjustment. And right now it looks to be losing, what did I say, $2 million? 2.2 in external fleet services. They budgeted 3.75 in revenue, and to date they've received 671,000. So we've got some contracts out there that we just need to pay close attention to. This has nothing necessarily to do with the virus. It's just an operating thing that we have to deal with in the bigger picture of the county operation.
Mary, a couple of comments on that. Number one, I think we significantly over budgeted the revenue. I think that's problem number one. Problem number two is we did make adjustments to our rate structure probably a year ago, if not a little bit more. We're still waiting for that to work its way through. I do think that business has been down the last 3 to 6 months. However, we have brought on a consultant that we're working with to review our rate structure and our financials in order to provide recommendations as to how we can get this fund back on track. Out of all of the areas that Mary is reviewing with you today, I would say it's this fund as well as the Special Transportation Fund that are the biggest concerns. We will be reporting out to the board once we have finished the study. That is, we're waiting on the consultant's report. We hope to have that by the end of June. And we're also exploring other business models as well with other local organizations.
And this, again, this is just revenues. We haven't, next month you'll see the expenditure impact. And they have scaled back on their expenditures as well. So their revenue is going to be down. Their expenditures are not going to be down to the same amount, but they will be down some. So it doesn't mean they're going to lose that much. It's just that the revenue projections needed to be adjusted. And I skipped over the Intergovernmental Service Fund because right now on paper that looks really, really bad. It's looking $5 million in the hole. This is where we paid for we took the cash for the purchase of the 4500 Research Way building. So in 12 days, this will all be righted and there'll be an extra $10 million in that fund that takes care of that. This fund though also has the fleet services, and again they're projecting a decrease in revenues. However, again the expenditures offset that. So really the big thing in the Intergovernmental Service Fund is the spending of $7 million to purchase the building, knowing that we were going to borrow and pay it back. And that's where the building lands. So it didn't come out of the general fund, it came out of this fund.
Okay.
All right, now to the Benton Clinic Fund, and Sandy Smith again is online if we have any questions. That overall, there's a $100,000 reduction in state funding. And the big adjustment in their revenue projections is that when the budget was put together last biennium, for whatever reason, the Medicaid RAP was $2.9 million more than it should have been. And so this adjusts it. This projection that you see with a $1.9 million reduction in revenue also includes the $1.6 million that they've already received or will receive in COVID funding. And then the last couple of months, the clinic administration and Sandy looked at the allocation of the F2HC grant funding, and so they moved some of the revenues into Lynn County from Benton County, so there's a reduction in the F2HC revenues. Not overall, but just between the two funds. And do you have any other questions about this? This is, again, the clinic fund revenue. They're working really hard. I'm sure Sandy has some sleepless nights on how they're going to offset the reduction in revenues with the reduction in expenses. But she's here to answer any questions if you have any.
Commissioner Jaramillo?
All right.
Yeah, I also attended the clinic board meeting last night, so I have a little bit more of the detail on the situation at the clinic budget, and I know that there are some staffing measures that will be taken, and also just in terms of thinking about where best to deploy people and the best way to maximize revenue. I think that that seems to be well in hand, and thank you, Sandy, Tom, and team for working carefully to watch the balances there.
And the LIN fund, again, is impacted by the Medicaid wrap estimate to the tune of $300,000. However, they also received additional F2HC funding. So the supplemental budget that you just passed actually increases their contingency because their revenue was projected to be up. So overall, that's the revenue outlook for this biennium for all the funds on the one spreadsheet, but the narrative kind of hit the high point of each of the individual funds. So before we go into possible strategy, do you have any questions on the revenue estimate?
I just looking at the sheet, Mary, 2019-21 budget fund balances as of May 30. I'm just a little bit confused still about the line on that sheet that says that percent of anticipated. That's just the excess. That's just fund balance percent of anticipated, and then because it's contradicted by the projected revenue reduction, and I'm a little confused.
Well, they're kind of two different things. I was just doing the 1% of anticipated is where we stand today compared to where we were expecting to end the year.
Yes.
So and then I threw in the revenue reduction just to see the highlighted ones that were low and we're actually going to project revenue decreases. Those are the ones we need to pay attention to.
Okay.
That was my point.
Okay.
To just match up which funds are having problems currently and out into the future.
Thank you. That helps.
Yeah, I could have put a whole lot of words in there, but yeah, that's what it was. It's just information, just kind of to give you an idea of what we're looking at in each of the funds.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the question.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on revenue projections at this time? I know that we're expecting a special session sometime, hopefully before the end of June, but we're not there yet. Don't have a date. We'll have a little more clarity on some of our general fund revenues at that time.
All right. So, as I said earlier, I don't think we're in panic mode, but I think we need to be in conservation mode right now because we don't know what the future is going to bring. And the worst thing it could bring to us would be a downturn in the economy and a decrease in property tax values. Granted, we get the 3% growth year over year. However, it's always nice to have more than 3% growth. And we've been very fortunate in the last couple of years to see a 5 to 6% growth in taxable values over time. I don't know that that's sustainable, but that's what's helped us get to where we are today and the ability to have these balances that we have. And then to combine that with a reduction in state revenues could be really difficult into the future. So I still think we need to go ahead and look at some cost reduction processes just to get, so that we're ready and in the position to do a meaningful budget for the 21-23 year and not go in asking everyone to cut now. If we can save now for the future, I think that would be in our best interest.
That makes sense.
So, wait, as you know, personnel is our highest cost item, and we very quickly said and we know we're going to get salary increases. They're built into all of our compensation tables. That every 1% in salary increases is almost $1 million in cost, just off the top. So if our revenues stay static, personnel costs are going to go up $7 million each year, just because that's how our salary structures are. We could not have any salary increases. We have some labor agreements that we have to honor. So anything we can do to decrease the rate of growth in our personnel costs positions us better in the future. So a couple ways to do that is have a hiring freeze or no new positions or delay filling of vacancies. I know that you've been seeing the dashboard that we have. By not filling vacancies since March 23rd or whenever we said stop filling, please delay your vacancies, we've saved over $1 million. So it's not a big, it delays, 3-4 months hiring to fill a vacancy, but that amount of money does add up over time. So,
Mary, I just wanted to interject real quick as a reminder to the board. Our hope was to be able to bring the revenue projection updates to you today and then try and gain some feedback from the board as to what direction you would like to go. And then Mary and I and others would go forth and begin to work on specific recommendations to bring back to the board by the end of July that we would then want to implement. And so we're just kind of doing a litmus test with you today. It's not intended for us to problem solve today, but to use these topics as a litmus test. And then we will be coming back to you, like I said, before the end of July with recommended changes. To my main point, though, Mary, is regarding any potential budget reductions. As you walked the board through the various funds, some funds are having challenges, other funds are not. So as you talk about any cost-cutting measures, can you please share what your perspective is on cost-cutting as it relates to particular funds but not other funds? Oftentimes organizations will do a percent across the board. And I'm not one that's an advocate of that, but you can see where we do have certain problems that need to be addressed. And I'm just looking for feedback from Mary and the board. Are we looking at a surgical approach or something more general? So Mary, I would ask you to address that in your comments as well.
From my perspective, surgical is always preferable to across the board. I think we need to be strategic. Obviously, there are some structural problems that we have in certain areas, certain funds already. We need to address those as the structural problems they are and not paper them over or just make things worse by across the board cuts. And there are other areas where I think we just need to be very careful not to cut into services that are helping to provide support in the community to the folks that most need it now, because we could be making short-term cost savings decisions that would just lead to longer-term expenses in terms of outcomes for the community. So I always favor the strategic approach. And as Mary said, we're in a good position at this point in time. We have time to make these decisions thoughtfully.
And I echo Joe's comment is that our biggest funds, the general fund and local option levy funds, they're in fine shape, not fine shape, but they don't. And that's where our vulnerable populations services are, particularly in the public health arena. That program sits within the general fund, and we certainly wouldn't want to make that program not viable. The road fund, I know they're very dependent on the revenues, and they are scaling appropriately, so they will stop projects if need be. Plant projects. So I think. Well, our road fund, unlike our neighboring road funds, our road fund never carries a very large balance. We tend to budget to our means each of the bienniums, and I think that we'll see that going forward. Our problems are the fair fund, and Lynn's working very hard to address that, and I think the rest of us can work to weather the storm, at least in the short run, to see where we go with that. If it would be really nice if the tourism started picking up for whatever reason, even if it's housing the football team in a motel, that would be really nice because they would have to pay the TLT. But we were lucky, we had 2 good quarters of TLT, and I think that one of the options for the Fair Fund is to use some of that to deal with some of the immediate needs, because they do have, the fair fund is going to be in fine shape, because right now, financially, it's got the TLT revenue that it had in it. It just won't be able to go forward with projects in the near future until we see that revenue stream pick up. Special transportation, I think, Gary's got it addressed. We'll just have to see over time how, what that really means, because we haven't really had a long enough time to see what the reduction in costs have to do against the hole that we were in. And then we're down to the clinic operations, and I know they're working really hard to write that. And one of the things that we, because I don't have the expenditure side, that they are planned to move as the $2 million from contingency into the construction of the new clinic. So there are funds available to construct the clinic. Operationally, we just need to pay attention to growth and that type of thing. Growth in cost without growth in revenue.
Yeah, it's been challenging because of the fact that the dental clinic has been was on hold for the initial weeks of COVID, and that was right at the point of expansion. So there are lots of rays of hope for the clinic, Benton and Lynn. We just need to have the opportunity to be able to provide the services.
And the stopgap for all of these funds, in whatever shape they're in, is the general fund. So the general fund isn't immune, because that's where, if the decisions are to help these funds, it's going to come from the general fund. So anything we can do to help the general fund have funds available to backfill the other funds, all the better.
Okay.
So I just listed a couple of ideas, not that we have to talk to them about, but we have been thinking, we had a CIP meeting, and we have identified some projects that we can postpone to the tune of about $1 million. We've communicated with the departments. We'll be back sooner to you to talk about the change in the CIP prior to the bigger discussion on expenditure reduction, so that departments know where the CIP project stands, and that the board is in agreement to our recommendation. So that should be in the next couple of weeks. I have a couple other reach outs to a couple departments to talk about the capital projects, and then we'll be back to you to talk about our proposed change.
Look forward to hearing that proposal for capital improvement projects. Thank you for that. Commissioner Jaramillo, do you have more comments? Okay, thank you. Okay, any other questions, comments for Mary?
Mary, do you need any more direction at this point? Are you looking for additional information and feedback or not?
No, I think we'll come back with some thoughts on how we can reduce costs to offset some of these reduction in revenues. And yeah, I don't know that I need any necessarily direction. If the commissioners would like to give me some, I'm more than welcome to take some in. But
Well, at this time, my only comment is to be strategic and to really pay attention to the underlying structural issues where they present themselves, and think not only about this biennium, but future biennia, and about how we can be most effective, not just most efficient. Okay, I think that concludes our regular agenda. We have except for item 9.2. We will be discussing Oregon State University resumption plans at 11:30 with guest Steve Clark from University Relations and Marketing. And we will be in recess until 11:30 at this time.
And while we're in recess, we might as well go to the service districts.
I would plea for a 5-minute break.
A true plea.
A true plea.
I think I would join you in that plea.
So we will recess the main board meeting and be back here in 5 minutes. Okay, we are back in order to convene the service district, the 911 Emergency Communications Service, County Service District Governing Board. Okay, starting over again. We are convening at this time as the 911 Emergency Communication Services County Service District Governing Board. We have a very brief agenda, and then we will be returning to our main board meeting. The first item is probably introductions. I will start with Commissioner Jaramillo.
Annabelle Jaramillo, Commissioner.
Zan Ojiro, Commissioner.
Joe Kirby, County Administrator.
Vance Crony, County Council.
Alyssa Rash, Public Information Officer. Julia Neville, Board of Commissioners Office.
And joining us for this service district meeting is Jen Ambule from Finance.
Hello.
Hi. Okay. Are there any comments from the public? We have a consent calendar with 2 items on it. The approval of the bylaws creating the Executive Advisory Board, which we've heard about previously, and minutes of the March 17th, 2020 meeting. Do I hear a motion?
Move to accept the consent calendar.
Second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Moving on, we have one public hearing for the adoption of the 911 Emergency Communications Services County Service District budget for fiscal year 2020-2021. Jen.
Yes, hello. We are coming to you today after holding the Budget Committee meeting on May 4th of 2020, asking that you set the 911 district's total materials and services appropriation at $3,357,800 and allow the district to levy a tax at the rate of 45 cents per 1,000 of assessed value.
Okay. Is there any public testimony? Commissioner Jaramillo, do you have any questions?
No questions. This is pretty straightforward.
Okay. With that, I will close the public meeting and I will accept a motion.
I move to adopt the budget for fiscal year 2020 to 2021 for the 911 Emergency Communications Service District.
I'll second that. All in favor signify by an aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. That concludes the business of the 911 County Service District. And with that, this meeting is closed. And we still have 5 minutes until we...
You can just blast on through the service districts.
You could probably take care of a couple more service districts.
I don't think we
They're
have...
really easy.
Yeah, keep going.
Oh,
Yeah.
do we have
They're
more?
all in one packet.
Yeah.
I'm
You
sorry,
should see 'em.
I couldn't open the packet,
Oh, darn,
so I don't
okay.
have the packet.
Do you need me to switch computers with you, Commissioner? I can,
Dang. I'm sorry.
I can just pull this out and give it to you. Let me just,
I've got the packet in front of me, Dan, if you need help.
My apologies.
along the left-hand side is where you can click what you need.
Yeah,
probably
I
not
closed
exactly
that
where you need
too
to be.
soon. Okay, so, moving onward, we now open the Alpine County Service District Governing Body meeting. Comments from the public? Hearing none. The next item of business is the consent calendar. Minutes from the
I'll move
January
the
7th,
consent calendar.
2020. Second. All in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Now we have a public hearing on adoption of the budget. And we have Jen presenting the staff report.
Yes, the Budget Committee met on May 12th, 2020, and we are bringing forward a budget that contains the following. We ask that you set materials and services appropriation at $23,638, contingency at $33,062, for a total appropriation amount of $56,700, and this district has no authority to levy a property tax.
Thank you. Is there any public
I'll move adoption of the budget. I'll move adoption of the budget.
Wait, first I have to call for public testimony.
Oh, that's correct. I'm sorry.
Hearing none, I will close the public hearing and entertain a motion for adoption.
Move to adopt the budget for the Alpine County Service District.
Second.
For 2020 to 2021.
All in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. And with no other business, I will now adjourn the meeting of the Alpine County Service District. We will move on to LC County Service District. Are there any comments from the public with respect to the LC County Service District? Okay. Consent calendar contains minutes from the May 19th, 2020 meeting.
Move adoption.
Second. All in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Now I open the public hearing with respect to adoption of the LC County Service District budget for fiscal year 2020-2021. Is there any comment from the public? And staff report?
Yes, the Budget Committee for LC met on May 12th of 2020. The district has no authority to levy a property tax, and we are requesting the following appropriation limits. Materials and services, $47,728. Capital outlay, $14,000. A fund transfer in the amount of $2,355. Debt service at $2,355. Contingency would be set at $136,037. Total appropriations for ALFE would be $202,475.
Thank you. And I heard no one interested in testifying, so I will close this public hearing and I will entertain a motion for adoption of the budget.
I move adoption of the Alsea County Service District budget for fiscal year 2020 to 2021.
Okay. Second. All in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. With no other business, I will close this meeting of the Alsea County Service District. And we will move on to Alsea Human Services County Service District. Are there any comments from the public? Hearing none, we'll move on to the consent calendar containing minutes from the March 17th, 2020 meeting.
Move consent calendar.
Second. All in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. I will now open the public hearing regarding the Alsea Human Services County Service District budget for fiscal year 2021. Jen?
Yes, the Alsea Human Services Budget Committee met on May 12th, 2020, and are seeking approval of the following appropriation levels. Materials and services, $35,500. Contingency of $1,000. Total appropriations would be $36,500, and we're asking that they be allowed to levy a tax at 38 cents per 1,000 of assessed value.
Thank you. Is there any public testimony? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion for, I'll close the public hearing, and then I will entertain a motion for adoption of the budget.
I would move to adopt the Alsea Human Services County Service District budget for fiscal year 2020 to 2021.
Thank you. Second? All in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, with no other business, I will close this meeting of the Alsea Human Services County Service District. And I will put a pause on our County Service District agendas for this time. We will return to the Cascades View County Service District after the regular board meeting resumes and concludes.
Okay.
So Erica, are you still with us? We are now moving back into the board meeting.
You bet, sir.
I shouldn't even ask. I'm certain you're keeping up with us.
Erica is spot on. Okay, we are now resuming our June 16th board meeting and turning to item 9.1, which is a 9.2, which is our discussion with representatives of Oregon State University about resumption plans for Oregon State University. And I know we have Steve Clark, and I believe you have Dan Larson with you.
That is right, Commissioner. Dan Larson and I are with you.
Okay, please go ahead.
Thank you both very much. I appreciate the opportunity that Joe invited us. So Dan and I want to give you just a brief overview that I believe both of you may have already heard the community meetings we've had. Once again,
Could I interrupt you for just a moment, Steve? Okay. Someone had their mic on and we were getting a lot of feedback here. Anyone that has a mic on, please mute it. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. We wanted to provide the commission and the community that attends your meetings an update on OSU's planning, and I emphasize planning, for a gradual phased resumption of on-site activities, not only in our Corvallis campus, but throughout the state of Oregon, where OSU provides essential services and OSU extension and research and work along the Oregon coast. What I'd like to share is what I think each of you know already is the future remains very uncertain, but we are planning for the future with one of the best partners that we can imagine, even nationally, and that's the Benton County Health Department. The work of this county in planning for public health awareness, for public health response, and for empathetic care of individuals is remarkable. And we thank you for the partnership that the county provides and the work of Charlie Fountain and his staff and others in that department provide. It is truly remarkable. To give you a little sense of what we're doing, Dan will share in detail some aspects of that. It was late last week that we received information from the state of Oregon, the governor's office, the Oregon Health Authority, and the Higher Education Coordinating Commission about what is expected of Oregon's public colleges and universities. And I think you'll be impressed to know that the work of Dan Larson and many at Oregon State and the collaboration with Charlie and his team is that we are nearly spot on with everything that will be required of us going forward this fall. And we anticipate that those things that we have yet to tidy up, the few details to tie up, will be completed in short order. I think you already know that we resumed education through remote learning after spring break. We turned more than 4,000 courses and education sessions, seminars, and study sessions into a remote feature. But the truth of the matter is that while technology can aid higher education and provide accessibility to all learners, it is not the only way. Remote learning or online learning in some cases is not the only way that students can achieve their goals to graduate in a successful and time-sensitive way. So we believe it's appropriate to have a very public health-minded, phased and gradual return to resumed on-site learning that Dan will describe for you that includes what we call low density and mixed modality. So a combination of some on-site and some remote and frankly some online. We are going to apply these principles throughout the university, not only in Corvallis, but at county extension agents at our other campus in Bend, OSU Cascades, major facilities like the Hatfield Marine Science Center, and experiment stations throughout the state of Oregon. As health conditions allow, we will adjust our course delivery and our employment activities on site. That may require us to roll back on-site activities if the virus expands in its prevalence. Dan will share with you how we will seek to measure the activity of the virus. Gradually, if the prevalence of the virus diminishes over time, and the public health measures that we will utilize in cooperation with the local county health authority allow us to, we may see some expansion next year, next academic year, in terms of on-site activities. I think what's really important to remember, not only as a county commission, as a partner with OSU and public health, but as a community, that we intend to be very flexible. We will focus on public health as our first priority, and from that will follow our teaching, our research, our OSU extension work. We will never minimize public health to provide for those other activities. We'll also learn, quite frankly, for those of you that are sports fans, how do we manage sports activities? How do we manage cultural activities? How do we manage the library in a pandemic environment? And right now we're doing extensive modeling in terms of sports activities or cultural events, and there is a lot to be learned and a lot yet to be decided in that regard. What I'd like to do now is introduce you to Dan Larson, our Vice Provost for Student Affairs, and who has ably led OSU's response to the pandemic as OSU's COVID-19 response coordinator. Dan?
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate that introduction, and thank you, commissioners, for giving us an opportunity to share with you what we are doing in terms of our resumption. I know we have a short amount of time, and so I'm going to move through this information fairly quickly so that we have a chance for a conversation. More information is obviously on our website, our COVID-19 website. If you look specifically at our resumption, you'll see a lot of the details that I'm just going to really briefly run through. I do have a slide, and while I'm getting started, if it's possible to get permission to share my screen, I'll do that. If not, I can just talk through the slide as well. So let me start by saying that Oregon State University, we all recognize that we're part of a larger community here in Corvallis and across Oregon. We're in every county, and we want to remain a great collaborator in promoting local public health, and that is by listening, hearing the concerns and the suggestions from our community members. Oops, I'm sharing the wrong thing here, so I'm learning a new system here. Please hang tight. Okay. What's at the heart of our plan here is our comprehensive public health strategy. And in developing that plan, we've been working very closely with our county public health authorities, and Charlie Fountain and Bruce Thompson and Peter. Everybody has just been so fantastic working with. We've been through a couple of these challenges in the past, certainly nothing like this, but our ongoing partnership is paying off in terms of moving together as we head into some uncharted territory. Before I highlight the elements of our public health strategy, I just want to give you a little bit of more of the details of what resumption looks like. And so I'll start with summer. We just, given the direction, the guidelines that have come from the governor in Executive Order 2028 and the associated OHA guidance, we've begun our resumption process as of the 14th. The former executive order expired. 2028 is what governs our continued operation or resumption of in-person engagement. Now, we had to make some decisions early on what summer would look like, not knowing what the executive order would be or the guidance from our health authority. And so summer session is going to be largely planned for remote delivery. Around July 20th, we'll start having some in-person instruction. We have begun bringing back elements of our research enterprise, our extension activities across the state of Oregon. And our plan is really to remain in this remote delivery for most of the summer. We'll gradually continue to bring things back, working towards a low-density, mixed modality environment for the fall. And that is what we will expect fall to be like, and how we're describing it for our faculty, staff, students, and community. We will prioritize the health of our OSU students, faculty, and staff, and the members of our local community, Corvallis, Benton, Lincoln counties, Deschutes County. Again, we're all over Oregon, and so it's very important that we not move independently of what's happening in our counties. As health conditions allow, we'll continue to adjust our course delivery, our mix of course delivery. If we need to bring or move more to remote, we'll be prepared to do that if we're able to bring in more activity. We're really cognizant of the importance of in-person activity, particularly for our students that are transitioning to the university. So our students that are our first year, students who are transferring from community college, and also wanting to make sure that the students who benefit from the protective nature of the university are also benefiting from the services that are provided in person. We'll of course remain flexible throughout all of this. We'll change if the conditions require us to. And now I'm going to give this share screen another shot here to see if I can show the graphic that I'd like to show. This is, hope you can see that. A graphic, essentially it's our comprehensive public health strategy, but it's our outbreak mitigation plan as well. And what I want to spend most of the time talking about is our prevention efforts. And so the first component here, as Steve mentioned, we've been doing the TRACE COVID-19 study really for 3 months now, and it's helping us understand the level of prevalence of the virus that causes COVID-19 in our communities. We've just expanded to Bend. We'll be moving into Newport over the weekend. And the way that we're going to transition from TRACE COVID-19, we're going to use the same methodology for TRACE OSU. And this will be a series of random samplings of thousands of members of the OSU community across those 3 locations at various points every 2 weeks. And based on those samples, not only will individuals who are selected to be part of the randomized sampling will know their test results, and so we can work with the county to identify, to begin the contact tracing. But it'll help us get a sense of, do we need to slow down, or do you employ a kind of a cooling off period, or is the prevalence of the virus such that we can move to more on-site in-person activity. We'll be combining this with wastewater testing, and I would imagine you're familiar with that as well. We're currently doing that in Corvallis. And so what this will allow us to do is focus specifically in our residential communities. For example, take the west side of campus, and based on the prevalence testing and the pooling of the sampling of the prevalence, the trace testing, and wastewater, if we see that we have a high concentration of cases on the west side of campus, we can zero in on a particular residence hall and take additional action. Other measures, we have just implemented our required face covering policy for anyone who is on campus and enclosed locations. Of course, we have public health messaging, social norming campaigns that will be rolling out as well. In terms of the testing, we have anticipate the full capacity to do diagnostic testing for our students as their healthcare provider at our Student Health Center. We'll be working very closely with our colleagues in Benton County in terms of supporting contact tracing. We know it's hard to get folks to respond to emails and phone calls, and so we'll be part of the team to help move that forward. We have isolation and containment protocols. We We'll be employing those in our residential facilities as well as providing guidance for congregate living across out in the community. So our large congregate housing, such as fraternities and sororities, provide them with guidance on how to set up their isolation, and for students who are symptomatic, and then for those that may have been in contact, what's the protocol in terms of creating quarantine space. And with all of this, we want to make sure that students, faculty, and staff, members of our community that we serve, are well cared for in this challenging time. We want to, of course, make sure that students can progress. In a 10-week session, being out for 2 weeks is just almost impossible to stay making progress in an academic program. So we want to make sure that the students have the support in their academic program if they do become in contact or have the symptoms. So that's just a little bit of what that comprehensive plan. If you go to the website, you'll see the same image. And if you click on each one of these categories, you'll see half dozen to a couple dozen areas in which we are both investing and building out in terms of our plan. So with that, I'll close. And as I said, engagement with leaders in our community is important. We want to be responsive and inclusive of your perspectives and needs. So we'll turn it over for conversation.
Thank you. Commissioner Jaramillo, do you have questions? I think you're on mute.
Yeah, I am now. I'm unmuted now. I keep, this. I'm never going to get trained right on this issue, on this instrument. You talked about looking at. You a little bit about opening in the fall. What's happening during the summer in terms of cost potentials there? Is that going to be remote primarily?
So the first part of summer, so all the way up until July 20th, will be remote instruction. As of July 20th, that's session 4. Session 4 will have elements of in-person activities such as field work, lab work that couldn't be done during the first part of the summer. And then if there are new summer session sections that begin as of July 20th, those could be in person, but the instructional requirements of the OHA sector guidance would apply. So no classes over 50 in person.
Okay.
Have twice the size of the classroom for the class, those measures.
And a second question I have is talking about new high school graduates and how they're going to be integrated into the system. It's going to be a whole different social structure, and I think that's going to be an interesting thing. You have any ideas about that?
Well, we do, and part of our planning is, how do you try and create the most compelling on-campus experience, knowing that that's where the connections and the effective transition happens, while also having a mixed modality approach for fall. So we're in the design stage and learning actually from our students on what worked over spring, what didn't work. If you think about how we have a low density environment, we might have more activities specific for first year students and transferring students than we would for all other student populations, other demographics, just because we know that transition support of in-person activity is so important.
I agree, yeah.
I had a similar question. I was wondering how you were going to prioritize some of those transfer students and first-year students and those that have specific needs for more community and OSU support to be successful. They don't all take the same classes, so it's going to be a challenge, I would imagine.
It is, and that's where the guidance that we're providing to our faculty and staff that are developing programs is to really be thinking about those who are on campus for the reasons that will really make a difference. And so our Educational Opportunities program that serves first-generation students of color and students with high financial need, they may be 100% back, right? And because we want to make sure that students that have traditionally benefited from that additional support can benefit from that without having all the other programs increasing the density. So we have to look kind of program by program, where does it matter most that we have in-person engagement.
I also understand that classroom space is going to be at a premium, and that you have to do an inventory of all of the square footage of space available in order to do that crosswalk with course registrations and sizes. It's much more of a logistical challenge than you've ever had in the past. And I imagine it's expensive. So how are you going to address the additional cost burden of providing education in this mode?
Yeah, that's a great question. And our registrar, I feel that we have probably the best registrar around. She leads the conversation across the state. I was trying to look at an image that I could show you real quick, but I'll just describe it. We've gone through every classroom and basically using 35 square feet per person. How would you need to set that up? Some classrooms have fixed furniture, others do not, and some limited. So any class that is going to have 50 or less, we actually have a pretty good inventory of classrooms that'll support. So essentially a 50 or less means you need a classroom of 100 if they're 50, and so on and so forth. And so we've basically created these graphics of each classroom type to identify where seating can happen in order to maintain that 35 square feet or 6 feet distance between folks. We have also outfitted all of our classrooms with Zoom technology. So every class could, you might think about a class that has half of the students in it on Tuesday and that other half are doing it via Zoom at home or other locations. And then the other, it flips for Thursday, right? So every class will have the ability to do synchronous instruction via Zoom. So we'll use different tools like that as well.
Good. I had also heard that there was some discussion of having the in-person mode through Thanksgiving and then perhaps shifting to online modality after that. Is that a firm decision or still concept?
Yeah, let me clarify just a little bit. So we will have hybrid, and some classes that are over 100, classes over 100 will be fully remote, maybe with in-person labs and recitations. But beginning or after Thanksgiving, what we're doing is we're saying everything will be delivered remote, even what was in person. And so what this does is it reduces one more return back to campus. If we think about super spreader events, that's just one less opportunity. So that is a decision. Now, if it turns out that there's nothing to be concerned about at that time, we might relax some of that if it matters, if it's going to make a difference. We still will have our residence halls open for students that this is where home is, and students can make that choice.
Okay, so the answer is yes, but. Okay.
Yes, but a little different. Yeah.
Commissioners, I think what you can be assured of is, as both your lives and the work of the county, it's different, and it will be different in the future. Higher education will be quite different for our students. And we think this is an opportunity to be an even better community. So as our student body leaders and our leaders in sororities and fraternities, with the county health department, members of the Corvallis community actually become what Charlie Fountain and his staff call public health champions. And we see this as an opportunity to provide for an even better education in civil responsibility, an educational opportunity for all. And out of a crisis will come, I think, an even stronger, more inclusive Corvallis and Benton County. And we hope that it's a stronger education for our students.
Thank you. I think that we have seen evidence of that. There's been much more collaboration among various entities, whether it's the Samaritan Health Systems in the county and cross counties with OSU, with all of our nonprofit community. It's been a very welcome shift. And I hope we can retain as much of that as possible moving forward. There was a question in there somewhere, but I lost it. Commissioner Jaramillo, do you have other questions? Then I will keep thinking.
No, I really appreciate that you've shared this with us. I think it's going to be challenging and very interesting come fall. And let's all think positively about it.
I do remember what I was going to ask you. Is there someone from OSU that is regularly involved with the Joint Information Center? So are you sharing information resources and communication tools with Benton County?
We are. We have 2 members of my staff that participate with the Joint Information Center, as well members of my staff, a representative from the Student Affairs, and others at the university are working with Lillian Neville and working with Charlie to really incorporate what the community education campaign around public health and personal accountability. And we know that's a big task, but we think working together we can share, not reinvent the wheel. Aaliyah and others have created a great concept of public education around health and wellness, and we want to work with them to learn and apply and collaborate.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, I turned on my camera and came a little bit closer to the mic just to echo what Steve was saying about our really close collaboration. I feel grateful that a couple years ago I was able to build some very strong relationships with Oregon State University when we were working together on MenB, and it's just been a great relationship and continued partnership here with COVID-19. And as Steve said, I did meet with members of Oregon State University communications and student affairs staff to develop a collaborative communications and marketing plan for Benton County and Oregon State University over the course of the next 120 days and longer.
Thank you. That's really reassuring to know with both Oregon State University and the county and the city, of course, being our core governmental public entities. We want to make sure that the messaging is all consistent, and this is the most important piece. Thank you. So with respect to sports, just to go back a moment, I know that athletes are back and training at least in parallel. So that's a little bit of a testing the waters as well. But what are the decision points in terms of how athletics rolls out? Is there any timeline, or is it still fairly uncertain?
Dan, you want to take that, and I might close a little bit on it?
Yeah, there is some uncertainty in terms of particularly competition. We are working with the Oregon Health Authority and the Governor's Office on guidance. We have guidance from Pac-12 and the NCAA incorporating that. Right now we're using sector-wide guidance for fitness and outside activity. And so we are actually well instructed by that guidance when it comes to later in the fall and with more activity. We will participate in the development of a plan, but we also will look to OHA for their guidance as well.
As well, we're lucky as an institution, as a community, and really as the Pac-12 to have Dr. Doug Ackerman as part of our athletics department. He's a national leader in sports medicine on a variety of subjects, including impacts to student athletes' brains at all sports levels, whether it be football, soccer, volleyball, baseball. Mm-hmm. But Doug is helping to lead efforts within the Pac-12 in terms of appropriate COVID-19 response. Most recently, he and Charlie have talked. I anticipate that work will continue, if not on a weekly basis, several times a week. We are imagining a variety of scenarios for athletic competition involving spectators, no spectators, some level of spectators. The truth is we don't know. And so we think it's prudent to plan and to always have as our first priority the health and wellness of the student athletes who come here for an education, not just to compete. Those coaches and staff that work with them and to educate them, and members of the university community who associate with them, and Corvallis and fans who we hope can come back to games, whether it be women's basketball going to the national championship, or baseball or football, winning Pac-12 at multiple levels of sports. We are planning out of prudency because we think that's the right thing to do. Again, always with public health, our first and abiding commitment.
Thank you. I see Charlie's on the line too. Do you have a comment, Charlie?
Yeah, excuse me. I was just going to jump in and say that this partnership with the athletic system it became very close through MenB, but it has taken like much of our relationship has taken a quantum leap. Just yesterday, Dr. Thompson and Gerald Dyer did a walkthrough, the courtesy of Dr. Ackerman, through the training facilities and the precautions that OSU is taking with the student athletes. I just think the transparency and the partnership just goes from strength to strength and is truly remarkable.
Well, thank you. And I think it's fantastic that you are making these presentations around the community and giving people a chance to ask questions, because indeed this is one of the #1 questions that I receive from people around the county, both because of concern for the number of people that may be returning to Corvallis and from other places and potentially bringing coronavirus with them, but also because of the fact that the students and their families and sports fans are such a huge part of the economic base of the community. So just like the rest of the country, we face the same issues, and you all are right in the middle of that decision making. So we need you, and we value the partnership. So are there other questions from Joe or Vance?
No questions.
Okay. Commissioner Jaramillo, any other questions?
No, I'm fine. Thank you. I really appreciate your coming forward and talking with us. I think we wanted to collaborate a lot more. Yeah.
Yeah.
And our appreciation to you both, to Joe, Charlie, and his team, and be assured this will not be the last conversation we have with you. We will build on our relationships, our partnerships, and our transparency throughout Benton County, and we thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of the day. And with that, unless there's other business, we will adjourn and move to our service district agendas.
I left it right where it was before.
Thank you.
Hopefully you can see it.
Okay. I am now going to, oops, I changed. Your mouse is very sensitive.
It is.
We are now opening the Cascade View County Service District meeting.
The Cascade View, is that